Every Monday, I dedicate 10 minutes at the beginning of my class for a mini motivational Monday movie. This week, we are deeply inspired by poet, activist, and artist Cleo Wade. Heart says, love your tribe. Mind says, protect your tribe. Soul says, peace can only exist once you include all in your tribe. As a high school English teacher, I'm very open to the strengths and vulnerabilities of my students on a day-to-day basis. With this being said, when I talk about my passion for working with young adults and teenagers, with my friends and family, they usually ask one question: why? Sometimes with a little bit of sarcasm. It all started with a paycheck. When I was in college, I went back to my alma mater and coached high school lacrosse. Through coaching high school lacrosse, I realized I didn't really love lacrosse anymore, as I did in high school, but I loved mentoring and hanging out with the teen girls. I loved using lacrosse as a vehicle to mentor these young women. So through this, I became a high school English teacher, and through that, I landed right where I am today, right in the middle of it all, as a yoga, wellness, and empowerment coach for young women and young teens. Do you know how isolating it can be as a teenager? We've all been there at one point, everybody in this room. But teens now more than ever are more isolated, depressed, and anxious than ever before. I know this because as a teenager, I needed this work. I needed a group of people who were like me, different than me, and who ultimately uplifted and supported me when I needed it the most. I'm not just talking about sports teams or after-school clubs where we're mandated to be somewhere at this time and that time. I'm talking about real community, a real sense of tribe. So what do we do? How do we get to that point? All of us in this room today who are long past, some of us more so than others, being a teenager. Step 1, love your tribe. As I ran a yoga retreat for teen girls this summer, I realized that loving my tribe was so much deeper than just putting it with a hashtag love my tribe. It was more so embodying that I loved exactly who showed up for that opportunity, not who I wanted to show up for the opportunity. Loving my tribe means that I reflected back to those teen girls, to Dorothy, to Ella, to Juliet, to Katya. I showed them that I honored who they were 100%. Not who I would have preferred them to be. And that's huge. We often get really hung up in who we want to join our community, who we need to join our community. But we often don't pay attention to, if you build it, they will come, and we don't get to choose who shows up for that. So honor who shows up by choosing to show up fully for them, not who you think should have showed up. Running a yoga retreat for teen girls and working in a high school English classroom can be challenging. I said I love working with teenagers. I never said it was easy. So loving your tribe not only means that you love them on the good days, when everybody turns in their homework or everybody has a happy-go-lucky attitude, but loving your tribe means you extend that love and acceptance when they ask for it in the most unloving of ways. If you're a parent, coach, teacher, you know all about this. I know my parents do, and I love them dearly for it. But what you do in that moment is up to you. You can reflect back to them that agitation, that frustration, whatever is underneath the surface and going on with the teens, or you can reflect back to them acceptance and that they have space and permission to be where they're at. Loving everybody, even when they ask for it in the most unloving of ways. Step 2, protect your tribe. Protecting your tribe means that you protect your community from those who are cynical about it. So Captain Jack Sparrow once said, your problem is not necessarily the problem. Your problem is your attitude about the problem. Whenever I talk about working with teenagers or empowering young adults, there's always one person at the table who is a little bit cynical. And that's okay. I accept that and I respect that. But in order to do this work with the next generation, for our pale blue dot, you have to check that at the door. You can't be cynical. You can't look at them and say, it's your music, it's your lifestyle, it's your language. That's what's making everything go wrong in the world. The future belongs to the next generation. So make sure that you're not surrounding yourself with people who don't believe that. The next step in protecting and trusting your tribe is trusting that you are the right person for this job. As I said, you don't have to be a teacher, coach, parent to impact and influence young adults. All you have to do is step into that role when it's presented to you, which means you're comfortable having raw and vulnerable conversations. #unfiltered. And that's really terrifying in a high school classroom, to say, we can talk about anything you want to talk about today. I am there for you. I will listen. And it's really terrifying to reciprocate and to talk about your own life with young adults for fear of being judged or for fear that they'll mock you or make fun of you. Trust me, all these thoughts have gone through my head at one point, standing in front of 110 teenagers all year long. But trusting your tribe means that you create the space for them to come and talk to you. I remember one day we were typing narratives in my senior classroom, and a student I have an amazing relationship with, she was off in the corner being exceptionally moody and broody that day. And as we were going through these narratives, writing about our mothers and writing about our past, I just noticed she was holding back. So I gave her the space. I knew that if she really needed something from me, she would come and ask. So after school, she lingered around my desk in the way that all teenagers do when they're not quite sure if they want to talk to you or they're not quite sure if they want to bring this up. And she lingered and she looked at my desk and she picked up Goddess tarot cards that I have on my desk. I'm a little unconventional, and crystals. And she picked them up and said, "How do you use these? What are these?" I thought that's an odd question for something that's going on in her mind. And I said, okay, all you have to do is put your hand over them. You have to hold them close to your heart and ask one question. And then you can ask it out loud, ask it to yourself, and the first card that you pull will be the guidance that you need to hear today. So she places the cards over her heart, and the floodgates open, and she says, "Why did my mom give me up? Why did she give me away? Why didn't she want me? What's wrong with me?" And in that moment, as I'm sitting behind my desk at 4 p.m. on a Tuesday, I remember thinking, why don't they teach this in college? Why isn't there a course called Emotional Breakdown Moments and How to React? I was petrified. I didn't know. I've never been abandoned in that type of way. But I could feel that pain, and I could feel that through her voice. So I had 3 options. Option 1, call somebody more qualified to do so, a counselor, a shrink, etc. It's after school hours, so I'm probably not going to be able to do that. Option 2, I could have her sit down and tell her how to feel, tell her what to think, and give her advice. Advice that I've never personally been through. We've all been there. We've all rammed advice down somebody's throat, even though we've never been in their shoes. Or I could take the last option, which is giving her space to feel, to breathe, and to heal. And as she stood there in front of me and collected her breath, and she could feel my grounding presence, she then was able to sit down, collect herself, and draft a letter, processing her emotions. And when she was ready, she asked me to help. She asked me to help draft a letter to her mother and try to figure out where to go from here. And that was just one of those moments I recognized if I had jumped in and if I had said, oh, here's what you need to do, it's okay, it's all going to be good, I would have missed that amazing opportunity to connect on such a deeper level. So trust and protect your tribe. Step 3, include all in your tribe. One day in my 9th grade honors English classroom, a young man raised his hand and he said, Miss Costa, I really want to go to Girl Vana Yoga with you after school. Now, Girl Vana Yoga is just for teen girls. So immediately I raised my hand back and said, no. And I could catch myself getting a little sassy here because I had assumed he wanted to come to Girl Vana Yoga just to see girls in yoga pants doing yoga, which was my assumption. But like I said, this is a continuous practice of checking myself and my assumptions at the door. In Girl Vana, we talk about body image, we talk about periods, we talk about consent, and we talk about all the feels any feels that girls experience through high school and on. So I had assumed, does he really want to hear about all that? Does he want to talk about all that? Yes, he actually did want to become a part of that conversation. And the most powerful shift for me was noticing that because I did not give him that opportunity, I had kept him on the side of things as a perceived problem instead of being a part of a greater solution. And this happens a lot. We think that we have an amazing group that we want to protect, and we don't think anybody outside of it is going to understand what we're doing, what that work is. Whether it's empowering young women, whether it's starting nonprofits, whether it's a church group, a school group, there's always a little bit of hesitation there about letting the others in. The people who don't look like you, the people who don't resonate with you, the people who pray in different ways that you pray or identify in different ways. There's nothing more powerful than human connection, and there's nothing more limiting than assuming one group of people or one person won't get it. Invite them in. And lastly, inviting all people into your tribe not only means everybody around you, but it means all versions of yourself. The versions of yourself you only save for your partner or for your best friend, or maybe that you just keep to yourself at home. I knew there was something lacking in my relationships with my students. I knew that I was lacking some type of depth. In my first year teaching, I'll never forget this. It was the hardest year of my life, but I recognized that through that class, I learned to find myself and to be vulnerable enough to show my real self in front of my students. Because as adults, we are constantly preaching to young adults and teenagers, be yourself, show your true colors. You'll be accepted and loved here. Yet we are constantly stopping ourselves from doing the same. So the day that I decided to dance terribly in front of my students, and this is how I dance all the time with them, to tell horribly cheesy jokes, which they still make fun of me for, and to be myself, and to allow myself to say, I'm having a really hard day today, was the day that my relationships shifted and changed for the better. And that's something we all can do in this audience. You don't have to have a classroom of students. You don't have to coach lacrosse. That's something that if you're brave enough to step up and do, is accessible to you right here. Because I'm not sure if you realize how many young adults and teens are paying attention to you on social media, the words you speak, and your actions. What are you reflecting back to them? Are you reflecting back that they need filtered, changed, and fixed, or that they are accepted and loved? So to end, we can all allow ourselves, if we're ready to step up, to let our hearts say, I love my tribe. We can allow our minds to proclaim, I will protect my tribe. I will trust them. And we can allow our souls to find peace by including all in our tribe. Thank you. Namaste.